Hey PBio. So today you're going to jump into how variation is created in bacteria and how that differs from sexually reproducing organisms. So far in this unit, we covered meiosis, Mendelian genetics, and chi-square. And in meiosis, we learned that organisms that are sexually reproducing create variation in their gametes through two main processes. The first one is through independent assortment, where the homologous pairs, the maternal and paternal chromosomes, one from mom, one from dad, line up in random ways throughout meiosis. And that happens differently every single time. And that separation creates variation. The other way that meiosis creates variation is through crossing over. Hopefully you knew that. Crossing over is when the homologous pairs during prophase 1 of meiosis kind of get tangled up and they exchange genes. And remember, that's the maternal and paternal chromosomes changing like gene for like gene. So if we're going to exchange the gene that makes eyelashes, presuming there's just one, I don't know, I need to exchange that gene on both. I can't exchange eyelash gene for a heart cell gene. And if you do, then you've got a problem. Then in Punnett squares, we learned how to predict the outcome of a certain sperm and certain egg, or certain pollen and certain ovum coming together to create certain traits for the offspring. And remember, those are just probabilities. Just like the probability of having a boy is 50%, that doesn't mean if you have 10 children that 5 of them will be boys. Rather, it helps us to predict the likelihood of something happening. And in chi-square, what we do is see, do the results of a cross fit with what we expected? And in the fruit fly lab, what you would have done is bred 2 different strains of flies, counted their offspring, and figured out, did you get what you expected to get? The other way to use that is just for any other sort of experiment, or whether it's in science or social science or education, we take what we had for results, those are our expected results, compare them with our observed, and if there is a big difference between them, and then we reject our null hypothesis. And all right, so just a reminder that life needs variation, and that's because of natural selection. And if all the organisms are the same and have the exact same genes, then when the environment changes, whether that's having new sources of prey, or there's new predators introduced, or there's a wildfire, the organisms can adapt to those changes because they have this built-in variation. There's different ways of creating variation depending on what kind of organism you are. So one way to do it is with mystics and DNA replication. And you might remember that there's an enzyme that goes through and checks the DNA, the new copies of DNA, and makes sure that there's no mistakes and repairs those, but sometimes it doesn't catch them. And that can actually be helpful if the variation creates a situation that's helpful for the offspring. So DNA replication is one way we can get variation. Another way is through sexual reproduction. Simply having the variation of meiosis, and then the random chance of any certain egg or sperm combining together creates new variation in the offspring. But what happens if you are not sexually reproducing as an organism? How do you get variation without the random processes of meiosis? So to show you that, I'm going to show you a little animation first.
Unlike humans, most bacteria reproduce by binary fission. During binary fission, a single bacterial cell splits into 2 offspring. This pair of offspring is usually identical, but in some cases genetic mutations occur which result in differences between the 2. The new characteristic is passed on through the generations. Additional mutations may occur over generations, causing the bacterial species to incorporate more changes in characteristics. Here we see a bacterium and its resulting offspring exhibiting a new hairdo gained via this step-by-step mutation process.
Okay, so that's vertical gene transfer. Basically, the bacteria are undergoing binary fission, also known as mitosis, but in the case of bacteria, we call it binary fission. They're just copying their DNA and splitting into two, and in that process, mutations might occur, and those will be passed on to the offspring. So hence the vertical idea, going from one generation to the next generation. The other possibility is horizontal gene transfer, where genes are transferred between members of the same generation. So there you go, between members of the same generation. This is really common in bacteria. I've got an animation for that as well, so let's take a look.
Most organisms pass their genes or traits down from one generation to the next. But researchers have discovered there's another important mechanism for gene transfer. It's now known that DNA can be passed directly between bacteria in the same generation, from individual to individual. Amazingly, this can even happen between bacteria from different species. This concept of horizontal gene transfer is illustrated here, when one hairy bacterium passes the DNA for hair production to a nearby bald bacterium. Once the bald bacterium has incorporated the new DNA into its genome, it too will have hair. Scientists are now looking at the effects of horizontal gene transfer in nature and how it can affect processes such as antibiotic resistance.
Okay, so that's horizontal transfer overall. Let's look at the different kinds of horizontal transfer. So first, here's like an overview. If you want to pause that and take a look at the different kinds, you can. Otherwise, let's look at them specifically. We've got transformation. So transformation is when the DNA is taken up from the environment. And this word should sound familiar to you because you did a DNA or a bacterial transformation in Madison, where your E. coli picked up the plasmid carrying the gene for glowing from the environment around it. It wasn't passed directly from one bacteria to another, but it was passed from the liquid that the bacteria was sitting in into them. So here you can see that little piece of DNA, it's entering the cell membrane and cell wall of the bacteria and getting incorporated into their DNA. So that's a horizontal transfer because it really came from one living member of the same generation and passed into the same living member. You might see the word competence in relation to this. Competence is the percentage of bacteria that are actually able to take up the DNA from the environment. I think I mentioned a while ago that you can calculate competence rates. You don't need to be able to do that in AP biology, but I like this cartoon, and so it's a good excuse to talk about it. This guy is incompetent because he's not taking up DNA. Okay, so just a little animation kind of reviewing what the lab looked like. This concept is really important because this is one of the ways that antibiotic resistance develops. All right, then in transduction, we have DNA being transferred to other bacteria through viruses. So here I've got my little virus. It's injecting its DNA into the bacteria. The bacteria, of course, is the host and creates more viruses. And in the process, it accidentally incorporates some of its own DNA into the virus. You can see that little green DNA there. The virus goes on to infect other bacteria. And in the process, it puts in some of the, we're over here. It puts in some of the old bacteria's DNA. So you can see that the little new piece of DNA, and that'll be incorporated into the other bacteria's genome. So I transferred DNA, but this time I did it via the vehicle of a virus. Next, we've got conjugation. So conjugation is DNA being directly passed from one bacteria to another. And how that works is the formation of a little tube that basically serves as a way to transfer the genes. This cartoon is creepy, but it's actually really accurate. And this is a real picture of two bacteria exchanging DNA this way. So the tube, I believe it's called a pilus, first forms, and then there will be a little nick in the original, the donor bacteria's DNA, and that's just passed on to the next one. And it's not passing on its whole genome, and this picture kind of shows that, and I don't want to confuse you. It's just passing on maybe a small plasmid that has this like extra information that allows the bacteria to do something special. So it seems like this is technically possible for it to happen between multicellular organisms, but we haven't seen that happen. So you cannot share DNA with an alien. All right, so that's just a quick rundown of how we can get variation in bacteria. Now that you know how we get variation in sexually reproducing organisms, you can kind of put those two together and think about how it all applies to natural selection. Hope that was helpful.